Sarah from Floral, and today I'm going to show you how to make a modern hoop wreath using dried elements as well as fresh greens. To start with, we're going to need to gather our ingredients. On the table here, I have the supplies I need for my fresh greens hoop, as well as the supplies that I need for my dried hoop. I'm going to walk you through what the supplies I have here. So these ones here are buttons. These are super cute and they add a lot of texture. I also have star flower. I have bunny tails, florals, and cream pampas. For my greenery hoop, I'm using cedar, boxwood, bay, and the super cute glittery preserved ruscus. In terms of supplies, I'm using a hoop wreath. I've got my pruners here, and I've got floral tape and ribbon. For the dried hoop wreath, having pruners is not imperative because the elements are quite easy to cut just with scissors. When it comes to the fresh greens, it's easier if you have pruners because the stems are a little bit more rigorous. I'm going to show you first how to make the hoop wreath using the dried elements, and then I'll show you as well how to do it using the greenery. The design elements are exactly the same, you're just using basically different ingredients. There's a couple different intricacies between them, but otherwise you just follow along with the same steps. For our pampas grass, this grass has a tendency to sort of deflate when it gets mailed or if there's humidity in the air. So before we start, we just want to give it a quick hit with a blow dryer on the hot setting. And it's best to do this outside because it has a tendency to shed a little bit when you blow all that hot air on it. I'm going to start by making little mini bouquets. So for the dried wreaths, I'm going to use pampas grass as my base. The bottom part of the pampas grass has the longest stems, so I'm going to use these for my biggest bouquets. By the time we get up to the top here, these strands of pampas are a lot smaller, so that's the section that we're going to use for our small bouquets to finish it off. To make a mini bouquet, I'm going to pull off some pieces of pampas. To make this bouquet, I'm going to use 3 pieces of pampas. And I'm just making the ends line up here, and this forms the base here. I'm then going to add a couple pieces of this florals. And I'm going to add some bunny tails, some star flower, as well as some buttons. It looks nicest if you can have differing heights between all your elements. That just adds a lot of more visual interest. You can tell these stems are quite long here, so I'm just going to give them a little trim here. It just makes it a little easier to work with. So this is my first bouquet that I'm making, and it's my largest bouquet. And I just take a look, see if I like it. I think I'm going to add one more bunny tail here. And now I am going to attach these together using floral tape. So the magic about floral tape is that it is not sticky until you activate it. So how you activate it is by giving it a little tug. When you tug it, it actually increases in size, and that's when it becomes sticky. But as you use it, you have to keep tugging it in order to keep the glue continuously activated. If you pull it too hard, it breaks. For my bouquet affixing, I'm going to cut a piece of tape, or you can rip it to about 6 inches. I'm going to go to my little bouquet here and start with my tape on the stems here, give it a little tug, and then wrap it around the stems. Like I mentioned, you have to keep pulling it as you go in order for the glue to be activated. I'm going to wrap it around about 4 times, just so it's starting to get affixed there. And then now I have this thread that's left over. Now it's time to attach it to my hoop. I'm taking my mini bouquet here, lining it up to my hoop, and I'm going to take this tape that I have left over and wrap it around the hoop and my bouquet. I keep wrapping it around, tugging as I go. And then when I'm done, I put my thumb on the end of the tape and that seals it in. I'm going to want to match now on this side a little mini bouquet that has similar appearance and size to this one. So we're gonna have matching ones on either side. So the general principle here is that we're gonna make a whole bunch of little mini bouquets. We're gonna attach them to the hoop and we're gonna work our way down from the top down to the middle where they're going to meet. I'm gonna show you guys next how to make a greenery mini bouquet. And it is the same principles except for instead of using pampas as our base, we're gonna be using cedar. Today I'm going to put a couple pieces of cedar together. And it's important with the greenery bouquet that you keep in mind that cedar or any greenery is a lot heavier than the dried elements. So we're gonna need to use a little bit extra tape to make sure it sticks onto the hoop well. For my base, I'm gonna use 2 pieces of cedar here. And then I have some boxwood. We need to have a bit of a clean stem so that we can attach the tape onto the stem. So I'm just gonna pull off some of that greenery on the bottom there. So that way I have a clean surface to attach the tape to. I'm also gonna add in a piece of bay leaf here. Same thing, just ripping off the leaves on the bottom so I have a nice clean base. And I'm gonna add in this glitter ruscus. You have to be careful with the ruscus because it's quite delicate. If you pull too hard, you'll end up breaking the stem. So now I've got my little mini bouquet here. And the same idea as I did with my dried bouquet, I'm gonna take some tape, except for this time, I'm gonna give it a little bit bigger of a piece. And I'm going to take my tape, wrap it around my clean stems, making sure I'm pulling every time to keep it activated, wrapping it around. And now I'm going to attach it to this other side of the hoop. Because the greenery is so much heavier than the dried, give it a little bit of a twist just to make sure that it's going to stay affixed using how much tape you have. And if you don't have enough tape to make sure it's not wiggling, just give it another couple wraps. With the greenery, it's a good idea to go a little bit below the stem and just do a couple wraps actually around the hoop. So I've got, as you can see on this side, I have a little mini bouquet from dried and a little mini bouquet here of greenery. I'm gonna have to keep in mind as I continue making this greenery one to just make them perhaps a little bit smaller because this one here is starting to kind of infringe into my middle. So I wanna make sure I keep my middle kind of freed up. So I might have to either trim this one or on my next ones not make them so big. I'm gonna add another mini bouquet to this dried hoop on the other side. I'm gonna try and make it have a very similar appearance to this one so that they are symmetrical. I'm gonna add about 3 pieces of the pampas grass here to form the base of it. This one here has a really crazy long stem. I'm gonna actually take my pruners and just cut this into 2. So how to do that is you kind of find an area where there's a little bit of a seam here. I'm just gonna give it a snip. This one here is also huge, so I'm gonna do the same thing. The ones at the bottom of the stem are way longer than the ones at the top. So by the time you get to the top, you probably won't be able to do this cutting exercise. You don't want your stems too long because we're attaching them to this hoop. So I'm leaving from my kind of where the pampas starts to the end about, say about an inch of space. Then I'm gonna take my tape and I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times. And then line it up so it's about even to the other one. And then attach it onto the hoop by just pulling the tape to activate the stickiness, and then pushing down with my thumb to make the glue stick. So you can see I made these a little bit different sized here. So this one here has way too long of a pampas extending compared to this one. So if you find that, you can always give this one a haircut, but I think I'll wait to the end just so I can see it in its entirety. So now I have my two big bouquets, and the exact same principle stands if you're making them from greenery. Two on either side that are the largest, and next we're gonna go to our medium size bouquets. And to make these a little bit smaller, I had 3 florals and 2 bunny tails. In the other one, I'm gonna make this just a little bit smaller by doing 2 florals and 1 bunny tail. This is totally up to your artistic discretion though. There is no right or wrong way. The nice thing about this too is you're just taping them to a wreath frame. So if you don't like it, you can just undo the tape and start again. So now I've got my little mini bouquet. I'm attaching my tape to it, but now this bouquet is going to be attached to the hoop below my large bouquet. So the important thing here to remember is we need to cover up this tape. It's very unsightly if we leave this showing. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna take this bouquet here and we're going to place it onto our hoop, but we're going to place it just down from our first bouquet so that it covers the tape. So if I place it here, that adds way too much to my first bouquet. You can't even see my elements. If I put it down here, you can see that green tape. So the right spot is right about here. I then take this one and just, same as all the others, just attach it onto my wreath frame. So now you can see that you can't even see the green tape behind. The green tape is mostly covered by our pampas, so that's why I'm making sure that I have a nice thick back base of pampas so that it's covering that green tape. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing now on this other side, and again, trying to make sure that my next bouquet closely mimics the size of this one here. So now I am nearing the end of this hoop here, and I'm going to finish it off with 2 more little mini bouquets that I've made here. I made these ones a little bit shorter and really fluffy. So I am choosing to finish this with ribbon, but you guys could also finish it without ribbon, but you'll just need something to hide the seam. So what I'm doing here is the same as I've done elsewhere. I'm just attaching it to the hoop, but you can see now I'm gonna end up with this spot right here where I don't have anything covering it. So I'm gonna cover that with ribbon. So on this one here, I have my end a little bit too long. It's kind of sticking out, jutting out there. So I'm just gonna cut this one a little bit shorter just so it fits more within my hoop. Now I have a much smaller gap that I need to cover with my ribbon. So this is much more manageable. I'm gonna take my ribbon, fold it in half, and I'm gonna make a little bit of a overhang here, about 1 inch. And then I'm gonna take my 2 tails and push them through my opening, and then just give it a tug. And as you can see, that covers up the gap pretty well there. So now is the time just to do sort of my finessing. As I thought this first one here, I made it way too long. So now I just take my snips and I'm gonna cut that one down a bit. I can kind of take a look anywhere else. There's, you can kind of slide them over because they are taped if you need to cover a little bit of space or if you can see any tape. You can also add in another little mini bouquet if you are feeling like there's any space that has any sort of gaps, or if you have any of your bouquets that don't seem to be firmly affixed. So this one's looking pretty good. So this is a completed dried floral hoop. Now I'm gonna show you guys how to finish out the greenery ones if you chose to make a greenery one. So I've made this greenery hoop here using the same principles as the dried hoop. The thing that's a little bit different here is that, as you can see, greenery is so much more substantial. So in the dried one, I made 11 bouquets versus right here, I have 6, and it's already filling up most of the space here. So otherwise, they're the same principles, just you need less greenery. The other thing that's different about them is I mentioned the greenery is a lot heavier, so you need to use more tape just to make sure it's affixed. And the greenery has a tendency to be a bit more rangy, so you might need to go in after and sort of trim the greenery that you find is going a little bit too left or right in your bouquets. So I'm going to attach now this bouquet that I made earlier. So this is what I mean when I talk about a little rangy. You can see that on this one here, I've got a really big piece of cedar. This piece is really off to the left and this one's really tall. So same idea as I did before, taking my bouquet, just moving it a little bit down and seeing where it fits, making sure I covered the tape from the previous one. And then I am just attaching it using my tape. As you go down towards the middle, same as with the dried ones, you're gonna want to make each bouquet a little bit smaller each time. So now I have the same idea as the dried one. I have this kind of last piece here that I can put a ribbon on, but I'm going to show you guys another way to finish it. So I'm going to make another little mini bouquet here. This one I'm going to make quite small because I only have a small space just right here to try and fill. So to make the bouquet smaller, this is just one piece of cedar that I'm just going to cut off about in half, and then just pulling off the bottom stem so that I have a clean stem, like I mentioned before, that you can affix your tape to. Same thing with this one. It's too big, cutting it and then pulling off the piece here. I still want to make sure though that I have a substantial enough bouquet because I always need to hide my green tape. So the hiding part comes from making a really thick background from the greenery. Because this is my last bouquet, I don't think I'm going to use the bay leaf because it's a really wide look here. So I'm just going to use some boxwood because it has a much more slender profile. And I don't think I'm going to use the glittery ruscus because I think I have enough in there. So this one here has 3 pieces of cedar and the 2 boxwoods. The difference also with the greenery compared to the dried is I like to make sure that on the greenery ones, I wrap this tape all the way down to the very bottom, versus with the dried, you can cheat a little bit and just kind of wrap it around 2 or 3 times. But the greenery, because it's so heavy, I want to make sure I do this all the way down to the bottom. So this is the part where I'm going to try and hide this tape bundle here with greenery rather than a ribbon. So what I need to do here is I'm going to take this greenery bundle and I'm going to cover it like so. But the trick to making this happen is I still need to affix this to the hoop. I'm going to lift this bundle up and you can see that there's this gold hoop here. That's where I'm going to attach my last bundle to. So take my last bundle, lay it against the hoop, and then I attach it in that space there. This is kind of a trial and error. We're gonna see if this works. If I was being super picky, I might add another little mini bouquet kind of right here. There's a little bit of a space. So you can see kind of if I put something in there, that might give it a bit more oomph there. If you remember, cautioned you about making these too big. Remember that you need to be aware of gravity. So these greenery ones especially, really, gravity wants to pull them down, so don't make your bouquets too big. So you probably need about, in this case, I think I made it up to 8 little bouquets. This one is a little bit too heavy right here. It's wanting to drag down. So next time I'll make that one smaller, but to just fix that, I'll show you quickly how to fix that last one there. So the one that's dragging down is this bunch here. So I'm gonna go around to the back, take my tape, grab one piece of greenery. You don't wanna do all the greenery because otherwise you're gonna see the tape, but I'm just gonna do a couple wraps around with greenery, or a couple wraps around the greenery with the tape. Cut it, and then just put my thumb to seal it. And now it's staying up much better. So this is what your finished greenery hoop is gonna look like. You can add any sort of embellishments you want. You can add pine cones or you can add ribbon. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop me a line. And if you are looking for DIY flowers, visit me at ufloral.ca. Thanks for watching.